So thank you for our monthly LEPC meeting today. We are fortunate to have Ron from Woods Hole. Ron has been here before, and he has given this lecture, and it's a very interesting lecture from the standpoint that it has to do with lithium batteries, which we're all starting to see and hear about in the news, and you know, a lot of the vehicles that are starting to come out now have lithium batteries. But one of the things that we are starting to see now is that that the Steamship Authority, the buses, there's several buses now, or at least one that I've seen the other day, but they're going to have two that are all going to be battery or electric buses. So that increases the risk of having some type of problem, a fire-related issue. And why is it LEPC? Well, because you know, these are things that can have, you know, affect us as a community, because if you have a large bank of lithium batteries and there's a fire, it could turn into a long-term event. And Ron will explain about what's going down at Woods Hole, and Woods Hole probably is a big user of lithium batteries that we're well aware of because of all the scientific equipment and such. And they have a good handle on all things that are related to batteries and when there's emergencies with the batteries. The other thing is that if you do look at the news on a regular basis, in the city of New York, there's a lot of clandestine e-bike you know, users out there, that they have a lot of these bikes that are being rented to many in the city, and it's not done with permits, and it's being done in the back of tenements, bodegas and things, and they're large occupancies, and they're having fires that are related to runaway batteries, and there's been multiple deaths, and they've had most of the fatalities in the city of New York are related to batteries. So it's, you know, it's what we're seeing a lot of now, and you know, we thought it might be interesting for everybody to hear from Ron again. So with no further ado, and at the end we'll talk a little bit about our February meeting, and I'll turn it over to Ron. So thanks again.
Thanks, Chief.
Don't touch this.
Would it be better if I dim the lights?
Yeah, mood lighting, candles. You want to light us some candles? Mel. Whaleson. Whaleson.
Is that too dark?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
All right. I don't really want to be in the way, so maybe I'll just stand over here. So I'm Ron Reif. Thanks for having me. I think Kim Strong tried to get me to do this last year, but we just couldn't get our schedules to work out. So I offered to do this, and happy to present. So I'm the Environment, Health, and Safety Director at the Oceanographic. I'm in my 21st year there. One of the things that I'm very interested in is lithium batteries. We use lots of these lithium batteries. We put them into packs, various sizes, and then we put them into our vehicles. Some of our autonomous vehicles, basically things that can go out, collect things, make observations, come back to a designated location, offload data. We also might put these into buoys, instruments, profilers. These could be deployed, recovered at sea. We also do some land-based surveys with these. An interesting one that I was involved with was New York City, the aqueducts. We were able to deploy one of our robots, and it would go into the aqueduct system, and it was looking for leaks. Apparently, the New York City aqueducts were leaking 1 million gallons a day. And so they wanted to try to get a handle on that. But the robot that we put in was able to go in, do that, map the images, and I think identify the areas where the water was leaking, the large leaks, and then come back to a designated manhole. Pretty cool technology. So anyways, gonna kind of go through this. This is kind of written for everybody, this presentation. I did share a copy with Kim, and she can share that with anybody that she'd like. I really tried to kind of dovetail this for the fire department, but I think there's a lot of takeaways for everybody. And I think everybody has noticed that lithium batteries, particularly lithium-ion batteries, the rechargeable ones, are ubiquitous. I mean, they are everywhere, everywhere. I drove here in an EV, so I'm literally sitting on a lot of power when I drive. All right, so lithium metal, interesting metal, least dense metal, and it's the least dense solid element. We got a picture here of lithium floating in, there's probably some mineral oil. Bare lithium, like we're seeing in that photo, you would not want to expose that to air. That could spontaneously combust. It's highly reactive, so you need to store that in an inner atmosphere under mineral oil. Lithium metal is produced through electrolysis of a molten mixture of lithium chloride and potassium chloride. I think most of the lithium might be mined in South America, but I'm not exactly sure now if that's still true. So lithium batteries, you're either going to have secondary lithium batteries or primaries. Secondaries would be what we have in our phones, things that you want to be able to recharge. These are known as lithium ion, and like the chief was talking, you'll see these things in electric bikes, electric vehicles, battery walls. Actually, you could have a battery wall in someone's house, which is basically getting power from solar, for example, or even the grid, and then storing it in lieu of like a standby internal combustion generator. And then there's the primary. These are non-rechargeable. These batteries will run for a really long time. So you're sending something out, or you're putting something in someone's body, and you want this thing to run for 5 years. No worries about power failure. So like a pacemaker is a good example of that. Why do lithium batteries, why are they different and potentially much more hazardous than conventional batteries, such as like an alkaline battery or even lead acid? It's unlike the conventional batteries like alkaline or lead acid, the electrolyte is flammable. Okay, so I subscribe to National Fire Protection Association. I'm a member. I get their magazine that they send out. I read that, try to read that thing, and an article just came out on lithium batteries that was really timely, and I've kind of integrated it into this presentation. So why are lithium batteries flammable? So, well, it's called energy density. They're able to store, relative to other batteries, a tremendous amount of energy in a really small volume, and relatively lightweight. That makes them very usable in a number of applications. When that energy is released uncontrollably, lots and lots of heat is generated. I'm going to have some videos if the technology will work, and I'll show you some of that. We're also learning that the lithium battery smoke, it's like a heavy white smoke. It actually is flammable. Not only is it toxic, but that smoke is also flammable. And there's been some tests which show where I think they call it deflagration, where that smoke, you'll have a secondary combustion and explosion. So you'll have that electrical fire, which we'll get into. You may have heard the term thermal runaway propagation. It goes from cell to cell to cell to cell, and you just can't put it out. So you'll get this thick white smoke from that, and then you can get that secondary combustion and potential explosion if it's in a confined space. So how do the lithium-ion batteries start? So physical damage, I got a picture of a Tesla in here burning uncontrollably. That's all over the internet. But that, as I understand it, that battery was punctured from just driving. I know something came up from the roadway and punctured the battery, and then that thing burst into flames. That was all over the internet. I think a big thing that manufacturers have done now, EV manufacturers, is to really guard that whole the battery housing and make that much more durable. But we put a lot of, at the Oceanographic, we try to put a lot of engineering into the battery housings, because that's really what's going to contain these things, and hopefully the fire as well. So you could puncture them, crush them. You could also short circuit them. Short circuiting is pretty simple. If you have leads coming off of your positive and your negative, and you put those together, that's a short circuit. Like if you were to go out to your car and you have a standard lead acid battery, and you were to directly connect the positive and the negative together, you could start a fire in your car, just from lead acid. Just the arcing that would occur there. Electrical damage, overcharging and wrong charger. I think a lot of the e-bike news that we're reading about is these aren't UL listed batteries. They're coming in from China, for example, Chinese manufacturers, and they're just not, even if they label them as UL, they're really not. It's fraudulent what they're doing. But you could mix and match chargers, and you can create all kinds of problems with your battery packs. Exposure to extreme temperatures. Lithium batteries do not like to be charged below 32 degrees. The lithium ions, they do not like this. You can cause major damage to your batteries if you do that. So I have lithium batteries in my boat and in my camper. And my lithium batteries have heating, and they also have cold. They also have a cold temperature cutoff too, that are all integrated into the battery management systems. So, you just keep that in mind. If you're going to be using lithium batteries in extreme temperatures, like you want this thing to be working and charging in below freezing conditions, you better make sure you have the right battery for doing that. Like it can handle those conditions. If there is a lithium battery fire, lots of heat, a lot of smoke and toxic gases. I did mention about the potential for explosion of the flammable gases in an enclosed space. So if you are going to be purchasing lithium batteries, there's a lot of cheap, when I say cheap, I mean inexpensive cheap. You can go onto Amazon and you'll see a lot of lithium batteries out there. I would be really cautious about just buying, the lowest priced lithium battery. I really wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to be in a boat that has that, or in a camper and I'm sleeping and it's got the cheapest lithium battery that I could find. I absolutely just would not want that. I like US manufacturers. They're more expensive, but that's for a reason. You want to stop charging once the battery is full. I do not leave batteries on chargers. Some people will. In this, I also have an electric, a battery operated lawnmower. It's got 80 volt battery, which is pretty big. But I will charge that. I will not leave that on a charger indefinitely. Some people leave their batteries on their chargers. We've had a fire at Hui from problems with chargers. But I take mine off. I know some people on some forums that I follow, they will put their battery chargers on timers, shut-off timers, and these basically just open the circuit. They stop charging. If you don't want to remember to go out and unplug it, there's ways around that. If you have a damaged cell, and a good way to tell if a cell is damaged, and we have this, I don't want to say routinely, but we do have this at the Oceanographic, and I've had to respond to a number of these. But if these batteries are swollen, bulging, deformed, you got a problem there. You don't want to put that thing back on a charger. This battery is shot and unsafe to use. This is not always possible, but when you are charging, maybe you don't want to be charging in your home. Maybe you want to be charging, if you can't put it outside, maybe you want to be charging on a cement floor, in your garage on the floor, but not tucked away and around a bunch of combustibles, for example. I would not be charging in direct sun, and I would be mindful of what temperatures you're charging at, because you could do permanent damage to lithium-ion batteries if they do not have a battery management system, and which can protect them from low temperature charging, or will internally heat them so that they can take a charge, get them above 32 degrees. All right, dealing with, and again, these are right from NFPA, dealing with the lithium-ion battery fire. Firefighters should use water on lithium battery fires. So, I toured, a while ago, I toured one of our battery manufacturers' websites, not websites, their production floor. We use a number of different battery manufacturers, but this one is called Electrochem. They're still in business. They're a very good provider of lithium batteries, high quality. But I spent probably a good part of the day with their safety director, and I said, "What do you guys do if there's a fire?" And he said, "Well, we have a fire brigade." And I said, "I don't see any fire extinguishers." He says, we don't allow them in any of the production areas. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, you have to get really close to the battery to put the fire out. Like, you have to get really close, and these things can explode." And also, depending upon the chemistry, like if it's a primary lithium, to put it out, you'd have to like surround it. And if you think about it, like if this is a battery pack, how am I going to surround that thing without kind of lifting it up or whatever? So they basically use water, and their basic approach is just flood the thing with water that's burning, protect the structure, try to get the temperature down, and try to stop that thermal runaway propagation where it just goes from cell to cell to cell. And even with primary lithiums, Electrochem told me there's just not that much lithium in there. It's going to burn itself relatively quickly. Trying to go get a Class D extinguisher to put out, one cell of 100, they're like, that's diminishing returns. You're putting the facility at risk of a structure fire. So they're just basically water. And also a water spray, according to NFPA as well, will have the effect of knocking down some of that thick smoke and potentially preventing that deflagration event, and potentially knocking the stuff down so you reduce the inhalation hazard as well. Disposal of lithium batteries. I'm going to show a picture of a burning garbage truck, but and this is a continued risk. But I would not dispose of used lithium batteries in normal trash. I would isolate the leads with electrical tape or whatever, and I would take them to like wherever you bought them, Best Buy or Home Depot. I did spend some time on Cape Cod Cooperative Extension's website, and you know how we have the household hazardous waste collection days? And I've used those. That's a great thing. I have to just comment that there's really not that much information on disposing of these types of batteries on this website. There's really not much guidance. So if you go to one of these household hazardous waste collection days to get rid of your hazmat, your household hazmat, you could bring your batteries, your lithium ions, but I don't know if they'll take them, is what I'm trying to say. So, okay, changing to, NFPA has a article called Supercharged Home Article. And they're just getting into some of, this is probably more applicable to if you respond to a house fire and you're wondering, and it's got solar panels and might have what looks like a Tesla there in the garage, This article's kind of talking about that. Like, what do you need to be thinking about when you're gonna attack this fire? So just keep in mind of some of the things that can be liberated in the effluent smoke, carbon monoxide, hydrogen, hydrocarbon gas. So I think I've got a video that'll play where they simulated a garage with, I think, the equivalent of an electric vehicle in there. And you'll see this thing, if the video will work, you'll see this thing emit some smoke, and then that secondary smoke, there's a deflagration event, and it literally blows the walls out. I mean, it just levels this thing. They made a point of saying that a significant explosion hazard may develop before any external indicators are evident. And they also said that lithium ion battery gases can burn with a similar intensity to propane gas. And they also confirmed water is really what you want to be using. Trying to slow down the thermal runaway propagation. This is interesting too. You can put the fire out, but there's evidence out there that the fires can reignite days, hours, days, and even weeks after the incident. When we have an incident with our lithium batteries, we will put them into a metal drum. Close the lid on it, put the ring around it, and we will just let this thing sit. And we'll move it away from one of our, from the building or whatever, and we'll let this thing sit for a while, and we'll put our thermal imaging camera on it. So just a warning, these things can take off again, and I don't know why. I don't completely understand these things. A couple things to think about that were in this article. Is there a lithium battery in that burning structure? Could it be part of the fire? Is it part of the fire? Is there an electric vehicle in the garage? Do you have a battery energy storage system? So like Tesla, I think, calls these battery walls. And they'll be in the house somewhere. Hopefully not in the basement, but potentially in the house. And these can store a lot. These could run a house potentially. These are big enough to run a house for multiple days. I'd be looking for solar panels on the roof, and then I would start to ask those questions. And where's the best place to get the answer? From the homeowner. If you can get them out, if they're available, ask them those questions. Federal Aviation Administration, they're a big player in this. There's been some cargo jets that have crashed. I don't know if there's been passengers, and these have been the result of lithium ion battery fires.
You guys see that okay?
No, not really, but. Storm out. As long as you get to see an explosion.
Oh!
Pretty cool.
You gotta take the insurance.
Fake news. Like a movie.
So those are all individual cells just
Yeah.
going off. This is that thermal runaway propagation that you're hearing with the pops, and you're seeing when you see those bursts of flames.
That's a wrap.
So I'm speeding this up, but this happened really quick. You're talking minutes right now for this.
Dispatch, can you notify FD?
Yes.
Marshmallows anymore?
FAA did this test after a significant fire event that took down a cargo plane. Now I think the firefighter is trying to knock down the fire with just water. Now all that thick white smoke presents the deflagration hazard. So just something to think about.
Anyone breathing that in around here?
Okay, so I'm just gonna try to wrap this up. At the end, I'll go back and I'll try to play videos, and if it crashes it, we'll just say goodbye. So,
Who's that?
all right, more about the FAA investigation. In 1999, on LAX, there was a fire that prompted the FAA investigation. So it was a pallet of batteries, and they dropped on their side, and then they erupted into flames 3 hours later. It took 3 hours, and then it burst into flames, so it was delayed. And they had a tremendous time putting out that fire. And that's really what got FAA's attention.
I don't know what he's doing.
In 2016, FAA did a formal investigation of lithium batteries and how they could be shipped safely on aircraft. They talk about a thermal runaway, which is a chemical reaction within a lithium-ion cell that results in a dramatic, uncontrolled temperature and pressure rise. So that results in the cells expelling their contents, including the flammable electrolyte. That's that really thick, white smoke. Cells in thermal runaway can reach temperatures greater than 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. The adjacent cells are heated, causing them to go into a thermal runaway. And then when it starts to go from cell to cell to cell, that's called a thermal runaway propagation. And that's what I think, if there is a fire with a large lithium battery pack or system, you really want to try to get that temperature, reduce the temperature, and stop that runaway reaction if you can. And I think from everything, the research I've done, you do that with copious amounts of water at a safe distance. What is the safest way to store and ship lithium-ion battery packs? Getting the state of charge to 30% or less. So it's really not a good idea to store and ship lithium-ion batteries fully charged. So some of you that may have bought lithium products with lithium-ion batteries, you know how they say, you need to charge these? That's why. They are complying with FAA and DOT criteria. So that's the safest way to store things. I've got some lithium-ion batteries. I've got two 100 amp hour batteries. Those are similar size to what you'd have your starter battery in your car for lead acid. And I have discharged those down to below 50% state of charge, and I have them stored in my basement. I'm comfortable with that. But if you can do that, that's a good practice. Heating cells to between 400 to 450 degrees Fahrenheit could induce the thermal runaway. What is the safest lithium-ion battery? If you Google lithium battery chemistries, you'll see dozens of different chemistries. The safest one today, and this will change with technology, but the safest one today is lithium iron phosphate. That is the safest. That's the one that you want today. And just repeating myself, but there can be a lot of hydrogen gas produced during a thermal runaway. We also spoke about what can cause this: short circuit, internal cell failure, heating, physical abuse, puncture, crush, a rapid discharge, overcharging, or what they call a latent manufacturing defect, not detected during inspection. And FAA supports what NFPA says. Aqueous, basically water-based fire extinguishing agents, are more effective than other extinguishing agents, such as gaseous agents. A little bit about energy storage systems. So here's a picture of an energy storage system. And you could have these in a number of places where you're basically harnessing renewable energy such as solar, and then you're trying to store it. This is a famous fire at an energy storage facility. These are Tesla These are Tesla batteries. They could not put this fire out. I think it was contained. I think it was contained. They kept it contained so that it didn't spread to other battery systems. But I think the best they could do is they just let it burn out here. I don't know what we have in Falmouth for energy storage systems.
They're at the fairgrounds. They got them at the fairgrounds.
Do they?
At the solar panels they just did in all the parking lots.
So they've got, okay.
And they're extinguishing agents in each of the control rooms,
Okay.
and they're like, you're not supposed to, we're not supposed to go in there, we're supposed to call somebody who's a representative there.
This deserves some pre-planning. Like, what would you do?
What?
So
I don't think they have
I don't know how to deal with
storage
those.
type. They don't
those
have
type of
storage,
fires.
it's going into the grid.
But that deserves some pre-planning,
Mhm.
especially if we have like an energy storage system farm. Like we've got many of these things. You know, that has to be well engineered and pre-planned for emergency response. In my opinion. When I say internal events, this is at the Oceanographic. These are just ones that I'm just sharing some examples. Back in 2004, I started at the Oceanographic in 2002. We have universal collection areas that we've set up in our buildings, and these can be large drums labeled with proper procedures, and we have training of our battery handlers. Somebody dumped dozens of wet batteries into the container. And then sometime later, strong odors were noticed. People that had offices adjacent to the area, burning eyes, headaches, and we had to respond to that. July 2004, a distribution person that was taking a battery pack for shipment, preparing it for shipment, burned their hand, fell back, got bruised. The person who gave the package to our distribution group for shipment did not properly isolate the leads. The leads were just basically out there, open exposed leads. Very dangerous. 2005, on the RV Weatherbird, one of our systems, the OBS, the Ocean Bottom Size Sensor, we had a fire and explosion. Luckily, there were no injuries. Okay, this is a battery pack, I believe, of the OBS, the Ocean Bottom Seismometer. So in here would be D cells. And you could just kind of estimate, you're talking 100 D cells of lithium, quite a bit of power here. This is what the OBS looked like after the explosion. We investigated this. This is back when I was relatively new, and I started to, well, this became a priority for me. And I developed our lithium battery safety program, training, and started to work with our engineers and implored them to design safety into their systems, because this is unacceptable. 2006, cells shorted at distribution. They were hot cells, irritating gas released. There were problems with the packaging. This is from the engineer or scientist that gave these to distribution for shipment. We basically responded. We basically neutralized with baking soda, put the damaged batteries into a metal container and disposed. Some external events. Since 2000, there's literally been tens of millions of lithium-ion batteries that have been recalled due to problems, overheating, fire. That I was mentioning that Tesla Model S fire. I think I've got a picture of that. Yeah, so a metal object at highway speed punctured the battery pack. It was an uncontrollable fire. They could not put it out. Could not put this fire out. Okay, more external events. U.S. Department of Transportation tightened the safety standards for transportation of primary and secondary standards. The events at Hui predated this. So in all fairness to us, we were doing the best we could. And we really didn't, there really weren't any enforceable regulations on shipping these things. This is when everybody was learning how dangerous these are. But in 2007, that's when DOT, FAA, IATA, IMDG, these are all the regulatory agencies that regulate multimodal transport of hazmat, air, water, ground. That's when all these regulations came into place. Some of the initiating events here, I talked about the LAX fire. Okay, I was wondering what flight this was. United Parcel Service had an in-flight fire in 2006. That fire could not be put out. I don't know what happened to that aircraft. I don't know if it landed or if it crashed. There were 10 air transport related fires noted in the Federal Register between 2000 and 2007. January 2013, Boeing 787 lithium battery fire. It was a short circuit, thermal runaway, and it was an uncontrollable fire. Okay, yeah, this is a picture after the investigation of the battery pack before and then after. This looks like a thermal runaway propagation, probably involving every cell. Could not extinguish that. This is a recent event, December 2023, lithium ion fire on a cargo ship off Alaska. This, I believe, is the fire. This is a Coast Guard helicopter, and the fire is somewhere down in one of these holes, burning uncontrollably. They would not let that vessel come into its intended port, and they sent it somewhere. It had to drop anchor, and then I haven't researched this, what happened, but there was a special team that had to go on board and figure out how they were gonna deal with it. E-bike fires. I just picked this up on the internet. This was X, formerly known as Twitter. This is FDNY. We had a terrible tragedy today. A fire started on the first floor in the vestibule. Cause of the fire was an e-bike. According to Chief Hodgins, from the scene, a two-alarm fire. It killed 2 people in Queens. These are just a few pictures. Relatively small fire to cause that, a relatively small battery to cause that amount of damage. We'll try these at the end, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try it again.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
So this one's pretty cool. This one is a small pack, but they actually short circuit it, and you'll see this thing take off. It's amazing, this fire. And then we got a couple of knuckleheads that crushed a lithium battery in a vise. These guys got really close to this thing to do this test. So those are fun to watch. As I say, do not do this at home. Don't do this stuff. It's just showing the potential of these things. So just a little bit of talk about, we're in the home stretch here, Hui's lithium battery safety program. We have a documented guideline, safety precautions for our engineers, our handlers, and emergency responders. I'm one of the emergency responders. Ryan is also, and we do have these events. It's not enough for us to pull a fire alarm, thankfully, but we do have to go out and respond to these things. Hot cells, we might have a cell that's bulging, we might have a housing that's been overpressurized, and we deal with them, and we've safely been able to deal with them thus far.
Or a boat that sinks.
What's that?
Or a boat that sinks.
Oh, that wasn't related to the battery. That was no plug.
So yeah.
Storage. How do we store batteries? Transportation, waste management, emergency response. Really, number one thing we want to prevent is we want to prevent short circuits. We do not want to let those positive and negative leads touch each other. And if any of you work on electrical systems, battery systems, non-conductive tools. If you have a screwdriver, you might want to wrap as much of that screwdriver in electrical tape as you can. Because I've done this. I've worked on batteries, and I've dropped a wrench, and it's hit the two leads, the two poles, battery posts, and I've had, you know, had some excitement. So I don't like excitement. I'd rather keep things, you know, kind of even keel, right? I don't like the roller coaster ride, but don't place cells on conductive surfaces. So, you know, non-conductive surfaces, if you're gonna work on this stuff. Short circuits can melt lithium. And that, really, you know, that process is cell overheating, cell venting, cell explosion, thermal runaway propagation. And what I didn't put here is the deflagration event. So you have that secondary fire explosion. Don't solder directly to cells. Don't charge a primary cell. Sometimes this happens in our systems. We inadvertently, due to water infiltration or something, we might, you know, due to damage of our circuitry, we might start doing something that we don't intend to when seawater basically infiltrates some of our instruments. Only use approved chargers, approved for that battery from that battery manufacturer. Do not mix different cell chemistries, sizes. Do not mix cells of different dates, different ages. Label your battery packs so we know what they are, what kind of battery chemistry they are. Protect from excessive vibration, shock. This gets into, so we want our systems that rely on battery power to be safe during deployment, use, and recovery. So we want to meet those performance standards of DOT for shipping. When cutting wires, this seems obvious, but you only want to cut one wire at a time. And remove jewelry. So when I did that tour of Electrochem, our battery manufacturer, the safety manager shared with me a pretty gruesome story. Someone at their plant with jewelry on became part of a battery circuit, and the gold is highly conductive. It actually melted her skin right off of her finger. It just came right off, all the skin, everything came off. Crushing, puncturing can obviously cause a problem. Transport the cells in original packaging. Some things we do, transport cells on push carts or plastic trays during assembly. Heat transfer must be considered in large or high current packs. You got to be able to deal with that heat. What did I say? 400 to 450 degrees, and you could initiate a thermal runaway. So you have to do manage heat transfer. This one's important. We build a lot of battery housings, different battery housings, because we take our batteries to extreme depths. We've learned that you have to have a pressure relief device on your battery housings. If you have a problem in there with your battery pack, and you get a combustion in there, you can get a significant overpressure, and that overpressure can remain. And when you bring this thing back, topside, you recover it, or even to the lab. I've seen housings that are, relatively thick, let's say 1/3 of an inch stainless, that are bulging. That's a lot of pressure. So we want pressure relief valves below the burst pressure of the housing. How do we store our cells? We can get a lot of cells in. We do not like to store a lot of lithium batteries in occupied buildings, and so we store them in unoccupied areas or in detached structures. In fact, we're working on getting another one up at distribution because we just don't have enough storage. So we really don't want to store these in occupied buildings, large amounts. We definitely have them there. The amounts that they use if they're building a pack or doing research on it. And then we ask them in that case, for those ones, have the batteries that you're just going to use for your shift, and then those batteries, which is just a relatively small quantity, they would go into a UL rated, 2-hour rated metal flammable storage cabinet to be stored. We like to have our designated flammable storage areas under sprinkler protection, detached metal structures. Transportation safety. So that's basically covered by this standard. They talk about basically safety venting device, prevent reverse current, that would be with diodes. Batteries must be secured to prevent movement during operation. There's other requirements, and the performance standards that we try to meet are the United Nations Model Regulations on Transport of Dangerous Goods. Short-circuiting risk is a function of design, packaging, and handling. We obviously want to prevent any short-circuiting during any transport mode. The performance standards that we have to meet in our performance packaging for transportation: drop test, vibration test, leak-proof test, internal pressure, and stacking test. All of this came out of those regulations in 2007. I had a slide on from DOT, and these are now universal if you're going to ship stuff. Okay, here's a picture of our battery disposal area with different chemistries. We do train our folks on this. Our batteries, lithium and lead acid, are managed as universal waste. Training is very important here. Since we've instituted our programs and our training, we haven't had problems with these areas. Battery disposal. I say, some people think that, let's say your battery doesn't work anymore. It's not producing enough power. That doesn't mean that there's no energy in that battery. There still can be substantial energy. It's just below what they call the safe cutoff level. I suggest people make sure you protect the leads. Do not expose your battery to water. Corroded or damaged batteries may need to be stabilized before you can dispose of them. Don't mix incompatible batteries. I also mentioned, I wouldn't just go put your spent lithium batteries in regular trash. I wouldn't do that. I would try to find a place to dispose of them. And perhaps I'll work with that cooperative group to try to get more information on their website, because I found that kind of interesting that they talked about all different kinds of household hazardous, but they didn't talk about hazardous batteries. So this is just a picture from way back. You can see leads here. This is a high risk of a short circuit in a disposal drum. Really what we want to see is something like this, where you've got those leads protected. Oh, here's that trash truck fire I found on the internet. This was traced back to a lithium battery. I don't know where this was, but this is definitely a risk. So emergency response. So obviously prepare for emergencies before they occur. Kind of think about potential scenarios, how you're going to approach them. At HUI, we try to understand what we can do and when we would pull the fire alarm and bring in the professionals. We've basically at HUI experienced all battery failure modes: hot cells, vented cells, fires, and explosions from all chemistries that we work with. That would be alkalins, lead acid, lithiums. Our basic procedures: evacuate to a safe area, warn others, and report the emergency. We put the first call into switchboard, and then switchboard will reach out to emergency coordinators, and then we make the call. The emergency coordinators, I'm an emergency coordinator, Brian's one. We make the call if this is something we can handle internally, or if we need outside assistance from Falmouth Fire Rescue. On a research vessel, notify the bridge, initiate vessel emergency response procedures. So the vessels have their own fire brigade. Lithium cell venting, gas, smoke. So yeah, there's all kinds of bad stuff that can potentially come off of a hot cell, a cell that's under a thermal runaway. You can also have corrosive wastewater that can be produced from cells. If you're going to try to neutralize these things, you got to have proper protective gear, hazmat training. might need the HAZWOPER certification. All emergency coordinators have the HAZWOPER certification. We do have our go bags with protective gear. Hot cell, evacuate the area if safe to do so. Try to remove an external short if it's obvious. After the cell is cooled, it should be neutralized and placed in a secondary container. I use a metal container. We have many remote thermometers at the institution. Some are used for predictive maintenance. I have some in my shop for emergency response, but there's been times where we've posted somebody at the site of a potentially hazardous battery situation, and we're just basically making measurements, making sure seeing what this thing's doing. This was a relatively small battery pack at distribution. However, this did cause an injury. It was a short circuit. Somebody got burned. They had a shock to the hand, fell back, got an injury from falling onto the deck. But basically, when we responded, we took remote readings of this when we could handle it with our hands, put it into a metal container, baking soda to neutralize it, and then it was disposed as hazardous waste. Lithium battery fires, pull the fire alarm, notify the switchboard. They are going to call 911 and request assistance from Falmouth Fire Rescue. We're not going to try to deal with a lithium battery fire shoreside. I talked about Electrochem. They basically say, do not equip your battery labs with Class D extinguishers, which is basically something called Lithex. They said basically, pull the fire alarm, get people out, and bring in the professionals to deal with it. On a research vessel, it's going to be the fire brigade dealing with it. They got no choice. Some of this is, I've already covered. The main objectives, life safety, get people away, prevent fire from spreading to other cells, prevent the cell venting, and then basically preventing the structural fire. And again, flooding this thing with water, whether it's on our vessel or if we have a sprinkler system or Falmouth Fire Rescue shows up, we recommend just water on these things. We made it.
So, just while they're all goofing, so we don't have to spend too much time. So, I think from a standpoint from a lot of the different agencies that are here, everybody's dealing with rechargeable lithium batteries, no matter how big or small. I mean, obviously, Hoovy's got a different, experience with them. We have some. We really haven't had any significant fires in town that have been related to batteries, lithium-ion batteries, but I expect that based on the activity of town, and we do run into different vehicles, we're starting to see little golf carts on Main Street and in the Heights. So, once in a while we have to go to homes that the batteries are discharging and creating, issues for us because of odors. I have gone to one home where somebody, not a lithium-ion battery, but they disposed of a 9-volt battery, and they were changing their detectors and they were throwing them away. And as Ron pointed out, the 2 posts were exposed, and they had cooked the night before, and they put tin foil on top of the casserole, and when they threw these batteries in there, they came in contact and they smoldered everything in the basket that was under a sink. It took us a while to find it, but when we did, you could see what was happening. All the batteries were all overcharged and had smoldered some of the items. Other issues, boat batteries that people have taken off for the winter time, they store them in their home, and we've seen batteries that are big packs of batteries where they're stored under old beds, and they keep storing things on top, and the bed comes down and it's the old coils, and it's come in contact with the battery posts, and we had a significant fire in a home in East Falmouth one time for that, with that scenario. So the more technology that we see, the more that we're gonna run into this. And I did learn something today, like I'm sure everybody plugs their cell phones in every single night. It doesn't look like we have to. Probably best after that, made me a little nervous. I'm gonna unplug mine at night now and not leave them plugged in. And we probably don't have to charge them all the time, let them discharge a little bit. But I'm sure the police has a lot of different electronic devices that are on them. I know, and like I said, we have, Falmouth Hospital uses a lot of lithium batteries for their, they have those little portable,
It's 20.
I call them as little portable nurses. They do all their registering and all of their report taking. And we did have an instance up at Falmouth Hospital where a battery was overheating. And we ended up putting in a bucket of water and just putting it outside and let it cool off. But the battery started to discharge. So, even though from Ron's experience, he's passing off something that happens in a larger scale than we do, but we're starting to see it more and more. So I hope that this was, beneficial to everybody. You're gonna see it more in the news. You can check up Google for a lot of this information, but, I think you get the point that, this is here to stay. And I wanna thank Ron for bringing his expertise here and, of all of his experiences, and we're grateful for having such a strong safety program. Looking ahead, in February, we're gonna have, our new MEMA, representative, Nate Cochran. He's gonna be here, he's gonna give an overview of what MEMA has to offer in this area, and he's new. In March, we're gonna have a tabletop exercise, and it's gonna be put on by the Mass Maritime students. The senior class generally has a capstone project, and they work amongst themselves to see who's gonna have the best, or they all put together a program, and then it gets selected by the staff, and the group that we're working with got selected for a presentation. So we're gonna host them here in March. It's a 3-hour program because it's gonna involve a group tabletop exercise. And I won't give away what the topic is, but it's something that we kind of gave them the idea because we've dealt with it, and they did a lot of work to kind of help us. So I think anybody that's working in Falmouth has any type of, whether it's a nursing home or housing, police department, fire department, DPW, it's all things that we might experience if we have a large scale event, especially storm related. So I think that when that comes about, Kim will go out and make sure that everybody's well aware of that, and we look for some real good group participation, and we'll break it all up like we have in the past with, in a tabletop fashion, and have some group talk and some presentations. So we'll probably do that in the morning from 9 to noon, so that everybody can get out of here for lunch and have the rest of the day to get other things done. So those are the next few months that we have ahead of us. So. Any questions, comments? I thank Ron for coming here and being available for us. He always brings a lot of information to us, so I thank gentlemen. Anything from you guys? No? All right. So, I appreciate everybody coming here, taking time out of the day. It went a little longer, but I think it was, we will have this fixed the next time that you guys all come, so. I should have thought of that last Friday before the guy left, so. So thank you again, and appreciate it, and have a safe week, and we'll see you again at the next one. Thank you.